And then I came back, and 4 years later, after studying in Sweden and studying pentathlon and wanting to make the Olympic team, and this time it was even worse. Because they only had 8 horses. No, 9. They had 9 horses this time. Well, I wanted to make the team this time, and I went into the ride. They had to last again because they only had 9 horses and they had 20 or 30 people. I went into the ride in 3rd place, but I was very close to first. The first 5 people were very close. In fact, the guy who was 5th had a really good ride and moved all the way first. So he's in first now. The guy who was first dropped to 2nd. I was 3rd before the ride. The guy who was 4th, right behind me, beat my time, but he had a fault at one jump, so he did not pass me in the score. So I stayed 3rd. So I was still 3rd, and the last guy to ride was the guy in 2nd, who was already ahead of me. The amazing thing was that they had only 9 horses, as I mentioned, but the guy who was 10th was only 1 point behind the 9th guy. And he said, if that guy can make the Olympic team, I can certainly make the Olympic team. We're 1 point apart. In the ride, that's about 2/10 of a second in a 10-minute ride. So they argued and argued, and they finally said, okay, we'll let the 10th guy ride, but we got to put another horse in the draw that's not supposed to be in the draw. And that horse's name was Gray Boy. He was gray, had a crew cut. If he could have, he'd have worn a helmet because he liked to run into trees and bushes. And actually, I drew Gray Boy. And I drew the #1 rider, so I had to ride first. So they could all see how bad I did and how much they had beat me by. And I warmed Gray Boy up. I knew him. And we did okay. He was very strong in the mouth. He was 17 years old. And he liked to grab the bit and just run wherever he wanted with it. So you had to use what's called a gag bit on him that would control it. We warmed him up. You have 15 minutes. I looked down after 10 minutes, and he doesn't even have a bit in his mouth. He chewed it in half or whatever. It was just hanging out. He had no control, 0. The reins went down to nothing. And we had 20 seconds left before the start of my time. And it's not an electronic start. When they say go, you go, whether you're there or not, and your time starts. They raced around. There were no more gag bits. They put a regular bit in his mouth, the kind that he liked to just grab and go wherever he wanted with. And 10 seconds left to go, and one of the stable hands came over to me, and he said, now, Jack, the reason Gray Boy wasn't supposed to be in the draw is there are 2 jumps on this course. We could never get him to go over and practice with bullwhips. One of the rules is all the horses must have negotiated all the obstacles sometime in training, so they at least know what they're doing. Well, these 2 jumps were the same. They were both at the top of the slide, about 50 feet tall. And the first one, you were supposed to jump it, check him, not go down the slide because then you'd have to come back up and you'd waste a lot of time. Check him and turn and go off to the side. The second one, you jumped it and checked him, but went down the slide, and they'll sit right on their hind end and slide right down the slide, but not go into the creek at the bottom that was 8.5 feet deep, and then go over to the finish line. So I knew the 2 jumps, what they were, and I thought, well, the only way I'm going to get him over this jump that he's never gone over is to go too fast so he can't stop. But not so fast that we fly out into space, because on the other side of the jump is a 50-foot drop. So we're coming in, and it's made out of logs about this big, and they're nailed down. They're not the kind you knock off with a hook. They're all nailed down. And there's a red flag on the right and a white flag on the left, and you have to go between the flags. So I kind of cut in on a short approach so he didn't see it, and he was going too fast. Sure enough, he was going too fast to stop, and sure enough, he tried to stop, and he couldn't. So he just tore the jump down. Just with his chest. He just tore the whole jump down, but it was legal because we went between the flags. No faults there. The bad news was that he stopped rather abruptly, so I left the saddle, and I'm sitting up on his neck with his ears between my legs. The good news was that stopping rather abruptly kept him from going down the slide. So I thought I lost a half a minute, maybe 10 seconds. Something. We got over to the next to last jump, which was the other one at the top of the hill, and this one was made out of 3 tree trunks about that big. He's not knocking them down. It was about this high of a jump. And it was about a length of this room approach. There was no way you could give him a short approach. He saw it coming, and he was tired anyway, and he stopped right in front of that jump. It's a 60-point fault if you have a refusal. The refusal has to involve the horse stopping and taking one step back with any of his 4 feet. If he stops and then jumps, it's still okay. He stopped, I took my crop and I whacked him a good one on the hind end, and he reared up on his hind feet like this, paw in the air like Silver did with the Lone Ranger. And while he was up there, for some reason, he took a step forward with one hind foot. So when he came down, he just came down on his stomach.
Oh.
None of his feet were touching the ground. He just rocking back and forth. And for some reason, I don't know why, he decided to climb over with his We went down and I made the Olympic team and got a bronze medal. All I was trying to do was get him to the finish line. I didn't make the other guy have a fault. So it's kind of interesting how these things work out.